Hello, it's Brad Laurie or BlockchainBrad, and today on behalf of BlockVera, an exclusive just for you. It's free and entirely for the people. We have the COO of Matic right now to speak about exactly what's happened and transpired recently. Sandeep, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for bringing me here. It's great to be back here, and I want to say hello to your community also.
Mate, you're very welcome, and you do sound tired because I can only imagine you've done a lot recently with regard to information, letting various sources know exactly what's happening in your community as well. But it was serious, so let's just not pretend. 70% drop, matter of literal blockchain seconds as they call it, or certainly over a 5-minute period. It shocked everyone and created a huge wave right across the Twitter sphere. So Sandeep, what happened, mate? Walk us through this very serious event that happened and caused such immense stress for your team.
Yeah, as I've already said on various platforms, that I think that it seems to be a coordinated sort of a shorting, activity that was done by some whales. So basically, they acquired large short positions on futures exchange like FTX, and I think they also accumulated some amount of Matic tokens on on Binance and BitMax, like whichever are the most liquid exchanges for us. And then they started doing the they I think they started selling into the spot markets, which created a downward effect. And then that also started and that also they did on, I think, with margins, like we have 5x margins enabled on Binance. So I think they accelerated the selling pressure, which led to people's stop losses getting hit and people getting liquidated, which again further puts a downward pressure on the price. And this was done in such a big way that nobody was able to react also. So
exactly, mate. So on that note, just to jump in, what are your thoughts on the fact that you have enabled this ability to for people to place that bet on the margin a trade of your core asset, this digital asset, both on Binance and on FTX? Is it something perhaps that you would look again at? Are you considering not enabling this in the future because it has caused potentially some serious problems?
See, this is not in the hands of projects. Like, it's not like we can go and say that, hey, FTX shut down our futures. Like, they actually they started a community vote in which Matic Network won because of the large Matic Network community, and it got listed on FTX. And we didn't even have a formal conversation with the FTX team. So it's really not in our hands. It depends on the exchanges and their business model and everything. And I'm pretty sure that the bigger exchanges would have taken the full consideration of they would have enabled this for the betterment of the project itself, because overall the liquidity is very, very small in the overall crypto space. And enabling those margins, ideally the good thought would have been that it will add more liquidity. But for a lot of retail players who do not know leveraged and margin tradings that well, for them this would have been a bigger issue. And that's what I see. Like, even in our community, the people who are there in the crypto space and have been trading and all that for a long time, or professional traders, they actually did not get hurt that much. The only people with large leveraged positions, they got liquidated, and they are the most sort of angry ones. But otherwise, the larger community, is perfectly fine. Like, if you would have been seeing on Twitter that almost all the projects, many dignitaries from the space, CZ from Binance, BitMax CEO, people from Consensus, people from Coinbase, everyone has spoken, and vouched for our integrity. So,
and obviously no one's really questioning the technological integrity of your team, Sandeep. If people did any research at all, they would know that you're really genuinely are centered around the tech. That's why you and I have talked for so long now, well over a year. But let's go back to this point you made. You tweeted this as well. The retailers got wrecked by this, those that are experimenting with this margin trade. Quite a tragic sort of scenario for them, because again, it corrodes some of that trust in I guess, their quest to try and make sense of this. Now,
Yeah,
what does
yeah.
this mean, though, for Matic when there are relatively illiquid markets when it comes to Matic compared to, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum, where there's still a substantial amount of liquidity, even though when we compare it to mainstream markets, it's very, very small, as you mentioned. It's vastly different with Matic. So why would they make this risk? Why would they take this risk, rather, and enable something like Matic to be traded in this way when this was perhaps a time bomb, in whether it be Matic or anything else with similar liquidity?
Yeah, I think that in terms of the uh, in terms of the enablement of margins, so these are enabled on a lot of projects. I think what made Matic the center point of this attack was that due to our fundamental progress, which also has been as meteoric as the price rise has been. Many of these, like Matic token price was almost like an anomaly in this entire space, right? And it kept going up while the whole market was crashing.
Flat.
And that's when these people would have realized that, okay, this is relatively low market cap coin, and these kind of activities could be done on this. There's a large public attention, also mass hysteria. Like there are projects which would have 100 BTC daily volume or even less than that, and hardly few people in their community. If you try to do it with them, it hardly makes any sense. But if you do it with a global scale project like Matic, it's makes more sense. You can drive more volumes. Like volumes on Binance were like crazy yesterday. 28,000 BTC volume was there. I think we were the second, or at times we would have parallel the the volume of Bitcoin itself on Binance. So and similar was the case with many other other exchanges where we are listed. So I think that these reasons, because we had a lot of attention, we were already growing, the price was growing a lot, and plus the margins were enabled. That was the main reason. And overall, like I'm not sure, because the whole last year we all know that the liquidity in the markets were fairly low, and exchanges also have to find out ways to provide more liquidity, because otherwise it can be a downward spiral effect. So I'm not sure whether from their side what strategy it is, but yeah, I mean, for very small market cap projects, it may be a difficult thing. Yeah.
Right, and it certainly raised the eyebrows of many, because, as you mentioned, the volume may have been significantly high, but when it comes to actual real liquidity assessments, that's still quite low. So it does concern a lot of us when we see very vastly different numbers in those two respects. But if we talk about what some have deemed, for example, Box Mining's raised very valid points about the notion of pumpermentals as opposed to the dumpermentals that follow. It's very fair, I think, that many are arguing that there was some sort of inner workings, there was some sort of mechanics going on somewhere, somehow, for a period of time from October to now, where that price is anomalous. It absolutely did rise in a time when the fundamentals didn't really change that much, Sandeep. So can you tell us a bit more about anything at all that really aroused, or really stimulated, rather, this kind of movement towards that top we saw before, that catastrophe in that 5 minute 70% dump?
Yeah. So no, I see from October, actually multiple things happened on the fundamental levels. Like many applications, like which are the top games and top game studios in the space, they sort of declared that they will be moving with Matic or working with Matic. So that was one important trigger. Then there has been a lot of reports alongside some big projects. Although these are not declared, so I will not name any of these projects, but many of the big projects, protocols even, were looking to use Matic as a settlement layer for the payments. So that was also that was also picking up a lot of attention in the market, especially maybe the institutional investors and things like that. And I think due to that, there was a lot of fundamental changes, and due to that, the price started going, like there was a good amount of rally. After it rallied, like, let's say, almost like 2x or more than that from the base price from where it all started. And people knew that our staking is also going to come up. So I think these people who would have done or executed this, they initially do some what you said as pumpermentals or some sort of activities these guys would have done, and planned it in advance. Yeah.
I see. And was there any media push? Because Sandeep, you and I have been around for some time, and you certainly as a COO, you've seen everything when it comes to all kinds of parties coming, trying to offer you their services in exchange for money, that kind of thing. So was there a media push here, or was there something perhaps like market makers going on behind the scenes? Was there actually any questionable conduct beyond the narratives and the partnership announcements or the prospective announcements coming? Because there's still that kind of thing happening with other platforms now. There's still announcements emerging, but they didn't see this kind of anomalous price rise. So I just want to be really open about this discussion, because people are still trying to understand and grapple with the speed, the expediency of this rise. It was just so fast and so hard. Many did expect at some point for it to top out before it toppled.
Yeah. So basically, first, I would not say that the kind of these announcements or kind of these movements that are happening with Matic right now are happening with any other project in the space, especially in the mid cap section of ours. I don't think there is any single project. So it will be wrong to say that it's happening with other projects also, and why only Matic is rising. Secondly, it's a long drawn fundamentals that we have worked, the community building. That by now that Matic community is probably one of the biggest community in this space. Already we are, you can compare Matic community to the top 10 or top 15 projects in the space, in spite of us being a 5200 ranked project. So there were these things, but yes, like beyond a certain point, like 2x, 2.5x, we also thought that, okay, finally our price is catching up. But beyond that, we also realized that, there must be something happening, like either many big institutional investors are getting in, or, some of these whales trying to manipulate the market price or whatever. So I think there is some sort of action, some sort of these things would have happened now that you go back and, analyze it in retrospect. But at that time, when it went past, let's say 2x from the base price of this rally, we thought that maybe, even I also thought that maybe this is the theory of reflexivity at play, which we saw for Bitcoin, for example. It went to like 8,000, 10,000 on itself. But then beyond that, there was the George Soros's theory of reflexivity that, many non-knowledgeable people also start jumping in and start buying at those levels. So maybe that was happening. And these people, whoever executed it, they, maybe were well aware that, okay, this is happening. And they actually would have accelerated also, because many this trading chart analyst also said that, okay, around 400 to 450 Satoshi, it will, taper out, and it will start, hit the high, and then stabilize for some time. But then it kept going from there, 450 to 500, 500 to 576, and there were crazy crazy predictions started coming up that it can go to 1,000 Satoshi and things like that. So that's when we also started getting scared that, okay, this is like going out of hand. But as a project, what really you can do? If you start saying that, hey, don't do it and don't buy, like you can't go to the community and say that, hey, don't buy, because they will think that, oh, something wrong is happening. Like, you are in a situation where you are between a, what do you call
rock
it?
and a hard place. Yeah, and that's why I want to talk to you, Sandeep, about this, because I understand what you're saying as a CEO. You want to advocate for the growth, the organic growth of your company based on real world proofs, whether that be the technology, whether that be, partnerships that you forge that are all, for the long term. But in this instance, that's not what happened, because everything was so short term despite some of these announcements. So what about the actual transparency of the transactions themselves? Because there's a lot of questions about the foundation. There's a lot of questions about the money, the unlock. So let's explore this, because I have to reference, someone who made, I won't mention his name actually, but someone did make a tweet out, an erroneous tweet about the kinds of, the amount of funds were apparently, taken in the last 2 months or 50 days. And then he apologized for that. But then what it was explained from other researchers was about 270 million approximately was the exact amount related to the unlocked token amounts. So can you talk us through exactly what is transparent, what is true with regard to the unlocked tokens, and even the date? So we're really crystal clear what was always planned.
Yeah. So around 26th of October, we already announced that we will be, sending out roughly 250 to 260, million tokens as our unlock schedule, which was scheduled for the October 26th, right? And this was clearly communicated to public, and that's the only amount that has moved out. So there is no additional amount that has moved out. And what we did is that rather than giving out all that amount in one day, we actually staggered it into multiple days, so that even that doesn't have a bad effect in terms of the liquidity or the circulating supply of the market, so that community is protected. So that unlock that actually could have happened in 1 or 2 days, we spread it over 2 to 3, 4 weeks, and that's why we are pretty sure that none of these unlockees actually was involved in this because many of them got their unlock 1 month back, some of them got 2 weeks back, and and none of these people have this massive kind of this thing. Like if you see the sell amount, that was around 1.8 billion, almost 18% of the supply. These people hardly, the biggest one of them would have a 0.2 or 0.3% kind of supply with them, right? With the biggest unlock, that to happen. So I don't absolutely think that that. And we actually, that's why that guy had to make a clarification and an apology, because he actually somewhere he took 10 million token as 100 million tokens and then counted that as 1% and then said 1.5%, right? It was absolutely
so we made an astronomical mistake. Now, when it comes to the actual amount, when we compare that to the circ supply or the total supply, can you give us those percentages so we know when it comes to the overall unlock itself, so we are aware? And then can we talk about the percentage of that was actually, when we compare it to the circulating supply and total supply, how much of was actually dumped, so we understand those two differences? Because from my understanding,
how much was dumped, as in dumped by our investors and the people who got the unlocks?
Well, we don't know how much was indeed dumped by any investor, unless you're tracking that. But more so, how much was involved in terms of percentages of that token release in this particular tranche of your overall supply and your circ supply. And then when we talk about from the questionable whale or whoever this is as well.
Yeah. So one is that this was, as I told you, that this was around 2.5% of the unlock. That was our investor unlock, and that was our final unlock. Only 40% of the investors actually said that they are not taking unlock. We announced it in October that 40% of the investors are not taking their unlocks. Some of them, with the price rise and all that, they started asking that, okay, so very few percent of them would have taken out. So overall, by and large, most of our investors have been given their unlocks. So there are no further unlocks for any, for the investment parties from our side. So one is that I wanted to make that state that. Second thing is that overall, the coin market cap also, this is publicly available on Tweet, where we have been, chasing coin market cap, and coin market cap said that we need to submit one more request. So overall circulating supply is somewhere around, I think, 35 to 40%, and right now they are still showing the previous circulating supply at the time of listing.
Yes.
The actual circulating supply is listed on Binance. It is listed publicly on Binance and it has been always like that. So overall, if you consider from 40%, 2.5% would be, I think, around 6% of the overall circulating supply. But the important thing to know that, and if you can, maybe in your video itself, you can show the Ether scan. Those tokens also were moved over a large period of time. So there is no way that they could have played a role. The role that was, So that these, people keep coming back because there is only one way that you can, there's only one way of doing the discussion that you can do with the team, right? You can't really, pick up those whales and ask them. But the main thing to look at is that these whales, whatever dump amount they accumulated from the exchanges itself.
Yes, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because how can we know, Sandeep, from your experience, and obviously your team's investigating this, and I assume Binance would try to be doing this as well. How can we, remove Binance from the equation? Because obviously some of these addresses, when you look from the foundation, when the movement out, into other addresses that were sent forth in the unlock. Some of it's getting back very quickly to Binance. So how do we know for sure that Binance isn't potentially involved? Because some people are questioning this quite reasonably.
No, I don't. People should ask two questions. One is whoever is asking, whoever is thinking that, okay, Matic team is involved. Do you think that a project which is backed by Coinbase, Binance Launchpad, topmost project, topmost performing IEO, topmost adopted project in the space would do this suicide to themselves? First question that. Second, people are saying that, oh, Binance can be involved. Is we are the crowning jewel of Binance Launchpad IEOs. Why would Binance do it for themselves? And that too, 70% liquidation, 70% downtick. Why would somebody somebody like Binance would do, or any other exchange? In fact, they are the main party to if conspiracy theories have to be believed. I'm pretty sure, in my 6 or 8 months experience, that Binance does not interfere with anything related to the this thing. People can tell me, people keep telling you hundreds of rumors, hundreds of speculations. I don't believe that at all.
Right. And you're very transparent. You're very clear about this, and I appreciate it. Now, what about FTX? Because in the past, there was some discussions, there was some very direct, words passed between CZ even and FTX and Alameda at some stages. Now, if you do a bit of investigation, you come to understand that Alameda is very distinct to FTX themselves, but they do have mutual interests. Is there any possibility at all that this is coming from FTX?
This is again speculation. I don't have exact proofs, but only thing I know is that many people have been telling that there was a large accumulation of short sales. And for FTX also, I think they are a US listed exchange, if I'm not wrong, or team is based out of Silicon Valley and all. I actually don't expect this directly from them. And see, psychologically, for the community, whenever something bad happens, you want to discuss about it, and only thing you can discuss is the parties, like whales and all these people, the traders, they are behind the scenes. Right. Nobody really knows who they are, right? So you can discuss with the team, you can discuss with the exchanges. So even with FTX, I would not put any direct allegation that they were directly involved in it.
And I totally respect that. Totally respect that. Let's not go further on that, because that's not a fair question. Now, with regard to your investigations as a team, because obviously you were very stressed about this, what have you found, in digging in the transactions, trying to work out, who potentially is the source of this very serious drop in value?
Yep. So as CZ in the original tweet, where he said that it's very clear that Matic team is not behind this, and this seems to be some whales and large traders. And I also believe the same, that these are some independent large whale traders, and to execute this attack, I think 500 to 1000 BTC kind of volumes, or kind of this thing would have been required. And I think there are hundreds and hundreds of traders all around the world who have that kind of financial might to do it. And this may be a cartelization also, like multiple parties coming together and trying to do it. And to be honest, and to be fair to the Matic team, like this we have also seen happening in Bitcoin also, right? Like we all are here, we have seen 40%, 50% drops in Bitcoin also. I don't recall the exact instance, but within last year also there was a flash crash event that happened with Bitcoin. This happened with BitMax. BitMax is main the platform token. So this is not like this is happening for the first time. This has happened before, and this only consolidates or solidifies the point that these markets are still very immature, and the leveraged trading and all that stuff are really dangerous for the retail community.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure you'll continue to reiterate the kind of dangers that do present themselves to those retailers, because you are active in those markets. Now, one of the things that did come up was that it wasn't just you in terms of the Binance IEOs that have had a fall. You had a major one, but other associated IEOs fell substantially in price. Is there any, possibility of correlation in terms of the effects, or was it because yours was so substantial? We're trying to understand more about why so many Binance IEOs fell in value in that same time frame.
Yeah. So I think the main reason, and many people know that whenever, like generally Matic has led the uptick or the downtick in the in many altcoins, especially let's say the fellow launchpad projects. So it has not only happened in the uptick, it has happened in the downtick also. So the last, like when we were rallying, almost all the launch, like other launchpad project, like not almost all, but at least 2-3 of them, like some 2-3 of them also got a lot of gains. Like they also expanded 2x or 2.5x from their base positions. So and Matic, I think it did like 3.5x from its base position in the rally. So so I think it's exactly the same in the downtick also. Like the emotions where I think community starts thinking that, okay, oh, if Matic is going up, then the other launchpad projects will follow. They start buying, and then when Matic is going down, they start selling the other launchpad projects also. I think the correlation is that also. I don't think that these whales would have executed attacks on multiple projects altogether.
I
Right?
see.
So,
And Sandeep, just to clarify, because it was brought up by some just as speculation, but is wash trading, or more to the point, market making? Do you think there's any risk at all that there is some sort of, whether it be external market making, whether it be internal, none of us can know, but it does seem, that there has been some sort of action to drive the narrative, or sorry, to drive the value as the narrative of promotions, of partnerships rather, all this positive information being released by the Matic Network, quite valid information. But is it possible that that's been in concert with market making to push this for the previous, 6 weeks or 8 weeks it's happened, potentially because someone was going to act? Just because I'm trying to understand just how substantial this prize was.
No, it's a valid question, and I think that it's applicable for any kind of markets. It's actually applicable for your traditional markets also, stock markets also, where if a particular company is doing well, then a lot of big institutional players get involved, and of course they can do some sort of tradings in their domains
To manipulate price.
Of course,
That's what I'm alluding to.
yeah. Like I mean, even if they are buying, even if let's say you are $100 million fund and you take a $5 million position in let's say some project in crypto space, it will have an impact on its price, right? Now it can be, you can be deliberate about it, you may not be deliberate about it, but the fact is that it will move the price, because these markets are essentially very small. In stock markets, maybe a $5 million position will not do anything. So and you are also very right that there may be external market makers like these because especially for a community project like Matic, because we did not raise like tens of millions of dollars so that we have like a huge war chest to control whatever to control the things that are happening. And they know that, okay, we are not doing it. We have multiple times publicly stated that, and anyone who would have seen our charts, they can very easily understand that that at least internally nothing is happening, and then they could have started their own engines and things like that. And from there, these guys may have done, like, I cannot reject that idea that there are no traders who do this entire, like, taking something up and bringing it down and things like that.
So in that respect, Sandeep, I wanted to ask you, how are you feeling about this, given that it is possible? It's potentially, something that external market makers can do, external whales can do. How are your team feeling about being susceptible to these kinds of things, and now having gone through it as well with this 70% drop?
Yeah, I mean, this is a sort of a evil that you have to live with, right? As a project team, a small project team, we cannot really do anything about it. This is like a systematic thing. I don't know, even exchanges can do anything about it. Like, and because if this happens in the traditional markets, then this can, and will happen in the, in the crypto markets also. I don't know how, what is the resolution of it, and if we can't do anything about it, like then we better, rather than wasting our thoughts on this, we are focused on building our fundamentals and becoming a topmost project in space. In future, if our valuation becomes like really big, the market cap becomes like $1 billion, then doing these things on a project of that scale is more costly. Of course, these things happen, like Bitcoin with 100 billion valuation. It can happen with Bitcoin, then it can happen with any other project. So it is frightening, but yeah, like,
Right. So you've gone through
really,
the process of damage control now into really just refocusing into what you already were, which was a tech-centric team, really trying to build for, improving scalability essentially and do what you do best. But what's the sentiment of the community though? How are they dealing with this, and how are you trying to facilitate their concerns?
yeah, by and large, I think the community is in our favor. Only I think due to this, like around 1,000 or 1,500 new people joined in our Telegram group, and many of them don't know the history of Matic and all that. So they are still like, oh, how can you explain this, and how can you be after multiple explanations. And I think this is, rather than asking for questions, I realize and I empathize with them, because this is a time where they are still enraged, because many of them lost maybe tens of thousands of dollars in the margin positions, and this is like really sad. And many of them actually personally messaged me that, oh, this was my family's Christmas budget and things like that. And I mean, like I can't even tell them that, hey, you should not have invested your family's crucial budget into this, because this is not the right time, because they are already unhappy and sad about it. And I start teaching them that you should not do this and you should not do that. But the fact is that the retail community does these things. At times the greed takes over, that okay, let me take a 5x margin position on my $500 or $1,000. Like, these people are like, the people who are most angry, these are not the people who would have lost like tens of thousands of dollars. These people would be the people who would be coming in with 500 or $1,000 in their accounts and doing a leverage position. Let me trade it on leverage and make 5x the profit. And these people get liquidated because they don't put stop loss or things like that, which traders have been telling me.
Exactly, and that stop loss trigger was quite immense. And there was even someone who commented on one of the various videos that I watched in preparation, who said perhaps there was a big finger slip by the market maker. You hear these kinds of comments. Some say it's not sustainable, the kind of growth you had, and it was controversial, and the list goes on and on. But the reality is it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's now like many of these, like, barring you and some few other people, most of the other YouTube channels, that at times they sensationalize things, and I can empathize with them. They have to, like, negativity sells, right? That's the bottom line. And doing negative things, people, they get more viewership and things like that, and saying that, hey, who dumped it on you, and creating articles like this, or headlines, clickbait headlines like this. And this thing, like, controversial, like, only till yesterday Matic was the number one project which will scale Ethereum. Today the growth was controversial, right? So this, but of course, like, we also understand that 4x growth from a this highly distributed coin and being on largest exchanges is like certainly like bit fast stretch. But we very, like, even now I would say that like 2x growth or 3x 2.5x growth from our base,
that's more palatable.
Wouldn't have been, like, I would not take that as a surprise.
I agree, but the reality is you did move higher than that. So just from your experience, having been through this, what are your views on something like your token being on margin trading platforms? Do you think it's healthy for the ecosystem, given that we're facing such an illiquid scenario right now?
Yeah, I mean, this yesterday's event has definitely, has had very negative consequences. So of course we reached out from our side also. But again, that we also know that this is completely the prerogative of exchanges. They also have their business models and other things to think about. So we can't really force any exchange, and we have no power to
Yeah, I just want to know your view, because I think it would really hopefully encourage those parties to consider it, at least, given that you've gone through the serious consequences of this.
Other thing is that we are also, like, yesterday it happened, so today we are talking from this angle that no, this is bad, margin trade is bad, and things like that. But many of the other traders in the space, some of them have views that for the longer run, there will be these scenarios, but for the longer run, it's good for the project. And since we don't come from a financial background, only some experts in the space can actually tell that what is good and bad for the longer run. but some of the people we also heard from on the Twitter and all that, that also this is good for the longer term. Let it be like this and things like that. So,
Yes, well, it's
completely
certainly
prerogative of
given you
third
a lot of
parties.
attention, that's for sure, Sandeep. Now, what about
Yeah.
transparency of transactions in terms of, I mean, obviously people can trace a lot of this stuff, but how confident are you in those doing an audit of the Matic Foundation transactions?
Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
All right. And I wanted to add one more thing. I read your tweet and I thought it was very bold and confident. You said that if anyone found anything that was not just anomalous, but highly questionable and perhaps could indict the team, that you would resign. So you stand by your team.
Yeah, I stand by. I am saying that if anyone can provide any proof that Matic team has anything to do with this flash crash, I will resign. I'll take personal responsibility, and whatever are the consequences of that, I'm ready to bear that consequences personally.
Right. Well, it was certainly bold, and many companies came out in support of you, the likes of Elron, Harmony, Anchor, the list goes on. And it wasn't just IEO related startup CEOs that came out, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Ethereum community, like Eric Connor from Ethereum community, he's one of the biggest thought leaders there. He spoke about us. We have people from Consensus spoke about us. People from Coinbase spoke about us. And these are people of high repute, right? And they have no incentive to speak in favor of us, but because they know personally, like they know me, Jayanti, Anurag, that we are like, many people give us this compliment that we are probably one of the most hardest working people in the space. And everyone feels like, every human feels that, okay, yeah, this is sad for this team.
Right. So in the future, Sandeep, how can you try to combat this from happening again? What strategies are you going to put in with your team so you don't see these meteoric rises, happening? I don't know if you can do anything about them if it's all externally driven, but have you already started thinking as a team ahead?
Yeah. So from our side, I think how to avoid these catastrophes. I mean, the only awareness is the only thing. Like, the community should be aware. But this is again, everyone knows that this has happened in crypto before, but still people fell for these, these manipulative schemes by the whales. So beyond like 2-3x of our base rally, these whales manipulated and people get manipulated and they capitulate. Like there is a downward capitulation. I think there is a upward capitulation also when something is not stopping and going up and up. Then people give up and then start taking positions. But again, as a project, see, this was a very unfortunate time for us where otherwise you never see me talking about price, right? And in this last 1 or 2 days, I had to speak extensively about the price because this is what has happened. So I'm not sure. To be honest, from our side, we don't have a formulated strategy that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I spoke out with my community that next time, whenever the price starts going up, I will always say people that, don't take leverage position. But then some community members are against it, that no, you should not interfere with the trading if someone wants to, take bigger position. Like, these are all multifaceted game theory scenarios, right? Somebody is a beneficiary of that. Somebody is a guy who somebody.
Yes, it's certainly very convoluted, especially when we consider what you really are. And that when you talk about your token, essentially it's in its pre-utility phase or really now in that utility phase moving forward in terms of proving more and more of your use case. So once again, you're driven by use. And yet we see speculation be the core reason for this fundamentally, which again is that people are playing with the value and the price. And that's why in the past, you and I have never really talked that much on the price, because for the hodler, for those who are looking at the prospective value of Matic, they don't think about these kinds of flash crashes as even relevant because they're not even looking at the price, every day of Matic. But many people now are, because they have an agenda of speculating because of margin trading. So, that's where people are getting wrecked. And it is concerning that these kinds of things are happening. But I do appreciate very much, Sandeep, that you're looking now towards trying to think of more of the future of what you're building. So let's talk about that for a moment. In terms of the utility, in terms of the planning, in terms of everything that's coming forth, give us a bit of a rundown on the real deal of Matic, and that is your tech.
Yeah. So, we, in terms of our tech, we are going very strongly. You must be watching that, many of these top games are moving on to Matic, because it provides you the right mix of decentralization and the user experience, and the security, because otherwise there's always a compromise between these two things. So that is one part, that is happening. Then on our network side, our staking games are on right now. We have got fairly, positive reviews, heavily positive reviews about our nodes being run by various validators. We have a large number of participants over there in our staking group. If you go and have a look on that, it's public on Discord. The link is on our site. There are many validators who are participating in the staking games.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, then we intend to launch the final thoroughly tested network sometime in the next year, like in the Q1. And there are already applications on beta mainnet who are operating over there and running their promos, running their games, with staking. The decentralized validators kind of network will be fully established in the Q1. So
Right. So what's clear, just obviously,
yeah,
because you've got a lot of calls, I can tell, but what's really clear is you've got a lot in your roadmap without trying to FOMO, because that's not why I asked you, just to really show that you are certainly driven with your team to keep building. Now, what's interesting is that with events like what's happened recently, it just goes to show that there's other factors at play with that token price, not just the developments, as you're moving and developing the technology and creating more utility. And that's the challenge I think people don't quite understand, is there isn't necessarily this strong correlate yet, this strong alignment between the Matic's technology and utility building and that token. Because once again, you see the margin trading thwart that. And so over time, is your fundamental sort of an internal driver, that technology, and that use case? Is that really what the Matic team's really about? Because obviously people need to ask you that because of this issue with the price.
I don't think that this issue has any any impact on the long term potential. If you go to our community, if you go to Twitter, everywhere where people are supporting us, like our partners, like the biggest highlight is like some of the tweets you see on the this one, like on Twitter. These people have come out on Twitter, but you won't believe that I have got so many messages on our personal chats, in our partner groups and all that, that we stand by you. Like, it was overwhelming. Like, some of the times you get goosebumps where we said that, oh guys, we are doing a lot of things right. This temporary attack or blip doesn't has any impact on us, and we have been doing a lot of great work, and let's keep doing that. Because when you get the support from third party people who have no vested interest in you, who are maybe the projects who are still exploring, and then people personally also in our team groups also send strength. They said that we are completely with you, and we know how great you are, and you will survive this. And that was like the most heartwarming event for all this.
Well, obviously, mate, because you are so tech focused, we do want to see, all of us want to see more utility proof from any team, from any tech. And
in fact, I want to thank you also. I believe you also messaged me on Twitter that that whatever this is happening, team is not involved behind it, and you believe in us and all that. And these kind of things give us a lot of confidence and a lot of faith in the community, that there are good people like you who have been tracking our fundamentals and speak only on the fundamentals rather than any of these speculative things. But that many of the other influencers and all that, they know negativity sells, and they try to
unfortunately it does. But the reality is, Sandeep, I have known you right from the start, and we never really talked about price then, and unfortunately this has happened. But you are not your price. You will never be your price in any sense, because it's all about the tech. And so in that respect, when it comes down to utility, what's really going to matter is more and more proof of business growth, of that token representing what you exactly set it out to do. And when that starts to be much more global, I think that the narratives will really shift into understanding what you represent technologically. But right now in this nascent time, a lot of people are experimenting with tokens for margin trading, and that causes these kinds of vehement reactions in the space. So, on behalf of your community, Sandeep, is there anything that I've missed that you really want to address to clarify that's come up with regard to this flash crash, with regard to specific numbers, all the facts, because this is your chance to really let rip and let us know exactly what, from your perspective is true, so that we can have confidence to get back on track and focus on what you stand for.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, we can have this as a caption of the project, like the video also. Like, I would like to say a few things to my community. First, that people who have been with us right from the start, they know that we are, a very team with high integrity, and we are here to have an impact on the space. Like these price movements and all that, they don't really, like, to be honest, they don't really matter to us. But we are focused on that is that if we are able to make an impact on the space, if we are able to take some of these decentralized applications mainstream, get them mass adoption, these price and all that things will take care of themselves, right? So, you have always believed in Matic team, and I'm openly saying, and I already gave that open challenge, that if anybody one can produce any kind of proof that we were involved in this flash crash, I will take personal responsibility of everything. And I'm here. You can persecute me, whatever, take whatever my team tokens, whatever, distribute it in the public. If anyone is able to find single iota of conclusive proof that Matic team was involved in this, so keep believing in the Matic community. I know most of our community members personally messaged me and supported that, and in the community also they have been very supportive. So first is that part, that you keep your faith and trust in the Matic team. Second, I already told that we are here for the fundamentals. We are here for the mass adoption of blockchain applications, and we'll keep focusing on that. You will keep seeing, and even with this thing has happened, you will see all of these things coming from our side with even more aggressive fervor, I would say, right? So that is my second message. And third, to all the retail traders who are not very sophisticated traders, do not understand margin tradings and leverage tradings and all, please do not engage in the leverage part. Even if you engage, the traders recommend that you have some sort of stop losses or things like that. Just read more about it, get educated, and then only get involved. Because for a project which has Matic's kind of attention, you have almost all the top biggest traders in the space, institutions in the space, now interested in Matic and trading on it. So be aware that there are much larger forces at work, and just be protective of yourself. These three are the key messages.
Very important three key messages, especially in light of the influx in inexperienced and unqualified influencers really pushing the idea of margin trading when actually they shouldn't, because they don't have those qualifications, and they certainly are opening up an audience where many of them are simply not understanding the serious risks of margin trading. So I definitely agree with you. I think that we're in an interesting time right now. But you've raised those three key points, and most importantly, you've really opened up the reality of that there was a pump that happened, there was a dump that happened, but the question now is, who did that? And the indicators are that that's an externally driven event.
Yeah.
So
especially at the top, when we already approached like 2-3x from our base price. From there, whatever the rally happened, I think that was like fairly inorganic, and people accumulated and then shorted from there.
Yep. And as you mentioned, you referenced the margin trading issue as well. So once again, on behalf of everyone, thank you for your transparency. If people want to know more about those transactions, as Sandeep said, that is all there on the blockchain. You can go and check the foundation tokens. Yes. You can go and check the lockup schedules. That's always been transparent, and that there's always some effects of that, but nothing like what we saw recently. So once again, Sandeep, as the CEO of Matic, of the network, and on behalf of your team, thank you for representing today. You have certainly brought it and helped us clarify more and give us confidence that you are moving forward no matter what, to keep building this tech so that you can show the world that you're more than just a better price. You're actually building something real.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for this.
See you, mate.